Capitol Hill. Congressman, so great to see you. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about Hillary Clinton. Rebooted campaign, now relaunched. She's back in South Carolina today. What is the prospect for her in South Carolina with voters who did not really warm to her back in 2008?
Well, I think she's being very well received in South Carolina. I have not gotten a report on today's visits, but I understand she's going to be in Charleston and Orangeburg. And from what I hear, there's a lot of excitement about her visit. She did have a real good visit with the South Carolina Democratic women several weeks ago. And, of course, we're welcoming all candidates from both parties to the state. Both of us, Democrats and Republicans, are very proud of our pre-primary status as one of the early tests. And as I've said to people, South Carolina offers a very good laboratory for trying out messages and seeing how you relate to farmers if you're over in the PD, to corporate people if you're up in the Piedmont, to military families, to educational families there in the Midlands and down in the Low Country. So we think this is a good laboratory for everybody to come and try out their themes.
Of course, coming after Iowa and New Hampshire, this is the first diverse primary test. Why haven't you endorsed her yet?
Well, you know, Andrea, I've always made it a promise, ever since we got designated as a pre-primary state, that it would not be good for the party, both nationally or for the state party, for me to get actively involved before the South Carolina primary is over. After the South Carolina primary is over, I will then take a more active role in the process. But I don't want any candidate using my involvement as a reason for not coming into the state. That was my position 8 years ago. I think a lot of people kind of misunderstood it, but I think it would be foolhardy for me to get overly involved and have our state suffer by these candidates using that as an excuse to stay away.
Now, I want to ask you about you and the other House Democratic leaders and the leader of your party, Barack Obama. Are you going to be attending the congressional picnic tonight? And what are you going to say to the president, whom you rebuffed on the trade vote, one of his most important legacy items?
Well, you may recall when the vote came up last week, I voted for TAA. I was one of those 40 Democrats that voted for it. I voted against TPA and also the following customs bill. Now, I do believe that the president understands where the Democratic caucus was on that. He never expected the caucus to vote for TPA. I think he wanted very much for us to vote for TAA. But our caucus saw this as a way to slow this process down because many of them wanted more opportunity to have input. Though I can understand that, I voted for it, though I've been lobbying to try to get more targeted funding into the TAA because dislocated workers are dislocated workers, but they all are not the same. If you come from South Carolina, where you've lost so many low-skilled jobs to Mexico and other places, you want more targeted funding in these dislocated workers programs. And I didn't get all that I wanted, but hopefully we'll get something done because I think it will be back shortly.
I want to ask you, speaking of workers in Mexico and trade deals, about some of the more controversial things that Donald Trump said in announcing his candidacy on the Republican side. He said some pretty controversial things about Mexico. He said when Mexico sends its people, they're bringing us their worst. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're bringing rapists. What do you think about that?
I have a very low opinion for anybody who make those kinds of expressions. I know this country's history very well. I grew up in South Carolina during the 40s and 50s, and these kinds of comments will not do anybody any good. And so I view this whole candidacy as a sideshow that's taken away from some meaningful discussions that we need to have. Now, to make those kind of comments about any group of people, and I remember way back, it was said about the Irish. These kinds of things were said about Italians, and certainly they were said about African Americans, and he ought to be ashamed of himself for saying those kinds of things.
Congressman Jim Clyburn, thank you so very much for being with us today. Thank you.
Well, thank you so